In Final Fantasy XIV, minions, i.e. the collectible pets that you can get from various dungeons, trials, and other places, have such fantastic memories for me personally. Where I first got them, the places I had to go to, and the people that I actually played with at the time that I acquired them will always stay with me. I have lots of good feelings then when it comes to collectible items in this game, but the coolest parts about minion collections are the interactions that they actually have with either each other or with the environment around you, and I love this. Being an MMORPG, other players can have their minion pets summoned as well, and sometimes the game will just blow your mind out of nowhere when your little fella interacts with a stranger's little guy and does something unexpected. To name just 5 of my favourites then is quite difficult, but here are some of the best ones, in my opinion. I think the first time I ever noticed how interesting minions were when I learnt of the Sun and Moon minion. A very, very long time ago, when YouTube was a little bit different, I, like many other people, made a video on how you can trade 1 elixir for the Sun minion and 1 high elixir for the Moon minion from an NPC imp located at X12Y37 on the Isle of Umbra, which is a small island accessed through the Realm Reborn main storyline. Around level 42, I think, is when you can first get there. The Magic Pot then, which is the NPC, trades for 2 of these minions, and that's what got me collecting as many as I have been ever since. But what clinched the deal for me with these minions is their interactions. I wasn't really sure what they did at the start. When you summon either the Sun or the Moon, they stay exactly where you summoned them. Even if you move away, they will stay until you get too far and they just desummon, which is pretty odd for a minion. There are some that do it, but a lot more recently have been added. This was like the first, but there's a reason they do that. You can actually slash poke either the Sun or the Moon minion, and it will move up or down, toggling its height in relation to your character every time you do the emote. You might think this is a bit weird until you go into G-pose and realize that the actual Sun or Moon texture of the model disappears and instead just leaves behind just the light source it provided at exactly the height that you'd set it to with slash poke. So for G-pose photos in dark areas, you can summon the minion of your choice, be that the cold light of the Moon or a warm glow from the Sun, and position it so that you have natural light on your character for pictures. This blew my tiny little mind, and I fell in love with minions ever since. Next up, onto more basic interactions then. Well, I say basic, but it still took me by surprise. One of the coolest looking interactions was actually with Mughals. Be that the Primogs, which is a premium item that you have to buy something externally to get, or other Mughal variations, they will dance in a circle. Each time a new player comes close with their Mughal, the circle will get bigger until you have this massive dancing circle of minions. I think the maximum is something like 8 minions at a time, and then it will try to, swap a minion out, and then it will create another circle. It's just a really cool thing to see, and especially if you've never seen it before. It also works with stuff like the Kalka and Brina minions from the Anti-Tower dungeon if you have those, and a few others as well, but it's always fun to see your minions dance around, and anybody who doesn't know what's going on thinks you're summoning some kind of devil, or indeed good King Mughal, and nobody wants him to be summoned again, let's be honest. On to more direct interactions then. 2 of the most stunning to see, I think, in this game are fight sequences where minions will fight with each other. There are actually quite a few that do this, but the first I probably remember seeing is back in Stormblood with Exdeath and Guido the Turtle. Exdeath tries to defeat the might of Guido, and he's having absolutely none of it. It's just really cool to see this. Another great example exactly of this is with the OMG Omega minion you get from the Omega storyline and the Shinryu minions. Both of those duking it out adds to the fact that these minions are adversaries, and it's a great homage to previous titles, and of course the rivalry in Final Fantasy XIV between them, and the coding of Omega to fight Shinryu. It's just really cool. It's one of the more interesting things is to see adversarial interactions between a pair of minions, and there are quite a few more. I'll let you explore and experiment and summon minions with your friends to see which ones work and which ones don't. You'll be quite surprised, I'm fairly sure. Speaking of battle then, some minions will even try their hardest to help you in combat. Even though, obviously, minions cannot do any damage to enemies, they're purely cosmetic and do nothing to the player stats or otherwise, they're just visually there. But visually, some will actually attack whatever you attack. I think the first time I ever saw this personally was with the Tombury minion. I remember fighting a Fate monster and seeing the little guy stabbing away with his little kitchen knife at the shins of the enemy, trying his hardest. But there's a bunch like that also do this, using special moves or stabbing the enemy with their weapons. But a little Tombury trying to punch way above his weight never gets old for me and lives absolutely rent-free in my mind when I think of minions, and every time somebody mentions a Tombury I always remember the stabbing of legs with that kitchen knife. Reminds me of an angry Lalafell. Just perfect. My favourite interaction then, since we're already through the 5 that I said we'd talk about, there's so many more, is easily my favourite is with Runar and Y'shtola. If, like me, you were on the edge of your seat during your Shadowbringer storyline and loved every bloody minute of a Raktika storyline in particular, you will have probably got a pretty good feeling for Runar, be that for or against his undevout love for Y'shtola. What remains in my mind the most memorable and beautiful interaction then in this entire game with minions is that if you have Runar out and your friend or other person has the brave new Y'shtola, they will actually interact. He faces her and provides her with a flower. To me, this is the pinnacle of interactions. It's such a sweet gesture to immortalize part of a storyline forever. Pure perfection, and I really hope one day they revisit the storyline, and with the current storyline it seems ever closer that we might get to that reality. Well, that was 5 of some of my favourite interactions with minions. There's so many others that I could talk about, but you know, YouTube and all that, algorithms. What's yours? Do you collect minions? Are you planning to collect minions? Did you know about all of this stuff? Now, honestly, is a great time to go and start collecting them with the Mughal event currently up at the time of recording this video, offering the Black Hayate Doggy and the Wind-Up Succubus, 2 very cool looking minions for very little effort. It's like 7 tomes, which is pretty much nothing in this game at the moment. Definitely make the most out of Mughal events, definitely go and collect some. You might be surprised how cool some of the interactions are. This is not to mention the fact that you can use pet collection titles and put them on your shoulders and feed them and pet them and make them do all sorts of crazy things. That's why I love minions, and maybe you do too. Have a great time zone, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.